Hi, my name is Ming and I teach English. If you are learning English and you are not following better ideas on YouTube, I'm going to tell you why you should. First of all, I have nothing to do with this channel other than the fact I use his videos to teach students one-on-one because his language is perfect for non-native speakers to learn native expressions. He is using English in a very casual way, but he doesn't sound stupid, right? This is the perfect combination. This is what you want when you're talking to native speakers. He seems like a normal person. Also, his pronunciation is standard American English. He does not have a regional accent, and his rate of speech is pretty perfect because it's not too slow for me, and it shouldn't be too fast for you. And most importantly, he is using a ton of native expressions, phrasal verbs. He's making a lot of cultural references. This is the perfect material for you to use to pick up those new phrases. This is the best way to learn these kinds of phrases, is hearing them used by a native speaker in context. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at clips from one of his videos. I'm going to break down the phrase that he's using, and I'm going to give you more examples of how to use that phrase. Then your homework is to go back and listen to the original video. Try not to use subtitles and see how much of it you can actually understand. By the way, if you have questions, if there are some phrases in that original video that you didn't understand, feel free to ask me in the comments and I will answer you. The video we're going to go through today is called How to Stop Mentally Escaping. And like I mentioned, it's by Better Ideas. The link to the original video is in the description below. We'll start with a clip and then I'll explain. Let's get started.
We do certain things or leave certain things undone in the past that continue to eat away at us subconsciously.
To eat away at something means to gradually destroy or weaken something. So Alzheimer's disease eats away at brain matter. If you always buy whatever you want, it will eat away at your savings. Spending a lot of money on expensive equipment could eat away at a company's profits. Here he says, eat away at us subconsciously. So if we are procrastinating, it's like we have this weight on us that's taking away our energy and our attention.
I think this is the most insidiously toxic thing about escapism and procrastination.
Insidious is something that is harmful and dangerous, but hard to detect. So something that is subtle, or that happens so gradually that you can't necessarily know that it's happening. Many people think that the pandemic allowed politicians to insidiously take away more of our freedoms. Advertising messages can be insidious by constantly telling us that things are not good enough the way they are, or that we are not good enough the way we are. Signs and symptoms of cancer can be insidious because sometimes the doctors can't detect them right away. Here he refers to the most insidiously toxic thing about escapism. He's just saying that the effects of escapism are toxic, but in a way that we don't notice because they're so gradual.
And that is because of something I like to call mental airtime.
Airtime is any time that something is being broadcast. Right now, this is airtime. It used to mean television and radio. Now it could mean podcasts or TikTok videos. Basically, any kind of social media exposure could be airtime. It took me an hour of filming to get 5 minutes of airtime. So we know that when something gets media exposure, it attracts our attention. So sometimes we can hear this word airtime being used just to mean attention. For example, if something is not getting enough airtime, it means it's not getting enough attention. And that's what he's talking about here when he says mental airtime. It's the ability of the things that we have put off to steal our mental energy and attention.
When we haven't yet done what we know we're supposed to do, and we have a tendency to put these things off.
To put something off is the perfect phrasal verb for procrastinate. If I'm putting something off, I mean, I'll do it later. Sometimes I feel like putting off going to the gym until later in the day, but it's better if I go in the morning.
We are subconsciously tainted by the fact that we are not where we're supposed to be.
Tainted by something just means affected by a toxic quality. For example, their water sources were tainted by human waste. Our ability to solve social problems is tainted by partisan politics. People diagnosed with psychological disorders can be tainted by the stigma of mental illness. Stigma just means shame or dishonor. Tainted by the stigma of mental illness. Here he says we are subconsciously tainted by the fact that we're not where we should be. He's saying when we are listening to someone else talk and we know that we are not doing what we should be doing, it can be hard to give this person our full attention because we are subconsciously thinking about what we should be doing.
With this feeling of anxiety that's just always there because of our chronic escapism.
Chronic escapism. Chronic escapism is something that is long-lasting and hard to get rid of. Chronic disease, chronic depression, chronic pain, a chronic condition, a chronic problem. Escapism is the tendency to look for distraction from something unpleasant. So an unpleasant feeling, an unpleasant reality, something unpleasant that we have to do. Here he mentions the chronic anxiety that is always there because of our chronic escapism. It means we have a constant sense of anxiety because we know that we're not doing what we should be doing, and because for a long time we have been practicing escaping.
We eventually guilt ourselves into eventually doing it.
When you guilt someone, when guilt is used as a verb, it means make someone feel guilty in order to get them to do something that you want them to do. Here he says we eventually guilt ourselves into doing it. So we feel more and more and more guilty until the pain of the guilt is worse than the pain of doing the thing. So some different ways we can say guilt someone, like I mentioned, make someone feel guilty, or guilt trip someone. She guilted me into buying a car that was too expensive. My mom guilt trips me for not coming home every holiday. They always try to make me feel guilty for not having kids.
And the theme of our lives that's echoing through our subconscious.
Echo is a sound that repeats after the original sound has finished. Like when you're speaking in a large empty room, your voice echoes. Echoes are super annoying on phone calls. When you can hear your voice after you've stopped speaking, I hate that. If that happens, you can say, "Sorry, can I call you back? There's an echo." You can also echo the speech or ideas of other people, which just means say what they said. Many modern Stoics echo Jordan Peterson's ideas. Jordan Peterson echoes Nietzsche's ideas. You can also echo someone's emotions. It would be really bad if your psychologist or your therapist started echoing your depression or anxiety. Here, he's using echo in a very abstract way. He says the theme of our life that is echoing through our subconscious. So your subconscious beliefs about your life are echoing in the sense that once we put it in there, it keeps coming back up. It keeps affecting your life.
So how do we do it? That's the golden question.
The golden question. A golden question is technically a question where you get back more from the answer than you thought you were asking. Here he says, so how do we do it? That's the golden question. So if you ask how, you're going to get back more answers than you thought you were asking for. It also implies that this is a difficult question to answer and that a lot of people have the same question. Another similar expression that I hear more often is the $1,000,000 question. And it means basically the same thing. It's a difficult question to answer that a lot of people have, a $1,000,000 question. Sometimes you'll hear this used ironically or sarcastically, like, what would you like to have for dinner? That's the $1,000,000 question.
But when push comes to shove, this is an irrational problem.
When push comes to shove, you know push? Shove is a synonym of push. Push and shove are the same thing. This is an idiom that means at the end of everything, after you have considered everything and it's time to do something or make a decision, when push comes to shove. Some synonyms: at the end of the day, after all is said and done. Many people complain about social issues, but at the end of the day, they don't really do anything to make the world a better place. When push comes to shove, they don't really do anything to make the world a better place. Friends always say they're going to support you, but you won't really know what they're going to do until push comes to shove. When it comes down to it, are they really going to support you? Here he says, when push comes to shove, this is an irrational problem. So at the end of the day, after everything has been considered, we can come to the conclusion that this is not a rational problem. So we cannot address it with a rational solution.
When you're faced with the crossroads of watching this funny little YouTube video versus writing a research paper.
Crossroads. To be at a crossroads or to be faced with a crossroads. Let's say you're walking down a physical street and the street goes in two directions. This is a crossroads. And what it means is that in this moment, you have a decision to make. Which way are you going to go? He said, when you're faced with the crossroads of writing a paper or watching a video. He could have also said, when you are at the crossroads of writing a paper or watching a video. To be at the crossroads of something can also just mean the place where two things intersect or come together. His lectures are at the crossroads of psychology and mythology. That means there is a combination of psychology and mythology in his lectures. His lectures are the place where these things come together.
Something other than logic takes over. Your monkey brain kind of bullies your rational brain into coming up with a rationalization.
Monkey brain. I am sure that the meaning of this is clear from the context, but I want to point out a couple of things and maybe teach you some new terms. He's actually mixing two terms here. Obviously, his meaning is the part of your brain that does not use reason to solve problems, like monkeys, right? Your emotional brain, your intuitive brain. He says your monkey brain bullies your rational brain. So the point is that the wrong brain here is in control. But the two terms that he is actually mixing is lizard brain and monkey mind. This irrational brain is more commonly referred to as the lizard brain. It literally means the brain stem, the part of your brain that just acts on impulse. Monkey mind is actually a completely different term that's used in Buddhism to describe the mind that is restless, that's jumping around like a monkey from thought to thought. The monkey mind doesn't let you meditate. The monkey mind doesn't let you focus when you want to focus. It's the craziness of our thoughts when we can't stop thinking. That's not what he's referring to here. He is talking about the emotional brain.
It has to be an emotional tactic. And I think that tactic is submission.
A tactic is a part of a strategy, a specific action that you take in order to reach a certain goal. Some common phrases with tactic: negotiation tactics, military tactics, violent tactics, interview tactics, manipulation tactics.
We need to get good at shutting the brain off, stopping the chatter of rationalization.
Chatter is incessant trivial talking. You're saying a lot of words, but you're not really saying a lot. Here he says we need to get good at stopping the chatter of rationalization. Rationalization is when your mind comes up with a lot of reasons and excuses why it's okay to do this thing that you know it's not okay to do. Some other ways you might hear chatter used are the chatter of birds, the chatter of people on a train, the chatter of your thoughts, or the chatter of the mind. That's the monkey mind.
Submitting to what you already know you're supposed to be doing is less of a psychological feeling. It's more of a physiological feeling. And again, this might sound very woo-woo.
Woo-woo. Sometimes we just say woo. It refers to beliefs that don't have any scientific basis. They're usually some kind of magical thinking, usually associated with New Age spirituality. So crystals, fairies, moon things, alternative medicine. I could introduce you to my friend Cloud Chaser. She lives in a hippie commune and believes in fairies. No thanks, she sounds a little woo to me. Here he says this might sound woo-woo. It means this might sound like bullshit.
The mind is corrosive.
To corrode something is to destroy or weaken it gradually. And a lot of times it's used in a physical context, like a corrosive material. A corrosive material would be something like acid that eats away at the material that it touches. You'll often hear about the corrosive effects of something. For example, the corrosive effects of sugar on our teeth. But we do use this in an abstract way too. Like you might hear about something being morally corrosive, which means it's destroying our ability to know the difference between right and wrong.
It'll try to figure out all these different little ways to weasel out of it, and you don't end up doing it.
Also here he says, weasel out of it. Weasel out of something means to get out of doing it. So like escape or avoid doing something. This is a weasel. In English, we associate weasels with being sneaky creatures or dishonest. So you might hear the expression, weasel your way into something, weasel your way out of something, or you might hear someone called a weasel. This is less common. It was like an old insult. I don't know. Like she's a weasel. Nobody actually says that anymore, but you might read it. It just means this person is sneaky or dishonest. He weaseled himself into a prestigious law firm. She weaseled her way out of doing her chores.
If you tense up your body and you try to convince yourself to power through it.
Power through something. You could also say push through something. It means force yourself to do something that's difficult or unpleasant until it is finished. You could power through a hard workout, or you could power through your day if you're really tired or sick. Here, he's using it in a negative way. He says if you try to power through this cold shower, it's like you're fighting it in a way. You're resisting it. So in fighting it, you're actually making it more difficult for yourself. The easiest way would be to relax into the cold.
You're allowing yourself to relax into this discomfort. And it actually feels quite euphoric when you do that.
Euphoric. When something is euphoric, it feels really good. And it also has this meaning of intense happiness or joy. You could contrast this happiness with contentment. Being content is like, I'm happy. And being euphoric is like, I am happy. You might hear a euphoric state, euphoric drugs, or a euphoric high. Heroin is a euphoric drug that gives users a euphoric high. The noun is euphoria. You could have a sense of euphoria. Here he's talking about the cold shower. So when you allow yourself to surrender and relax into the cold, it produces a sense of euphoria.
It's like submitting to the highest version of yourself.
Highest version of yourself or the best version of yourself. This is the part of you that knows what's best for you and that wants what's best for you. He says submit to the highest version of yourself, which just means stay true to your values. Do what brings you a sense of happiness and purpose. That is all for today. So what I would do now, if I were you, is I would go back to the original video, turn off the subtitles, watch his video all the way through, and tell me what percentage of his video you understood. And as always, if you have additional questions after you watch his video, if there are words that you didn't understand that I didn't go over, put them in the comments below. And if you want to see more English videos like this, tell me in the comments and hit the subscribe button. Bye!